Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Foxy Nuke.
Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome the fuck back. We're back at it again, and this time we're going over Saul Canelo Alvarez body size. It's either going to win him this fight or it's going to lose him the fight. Now, the picture on your screen basically shows you two Canelo Alvarez's, one that Triple G has already faced that's went 12 rounds with him, and the other is going to be the new and improved Canelo Alvarez that they believe is going to win them the fight. There's two different body mass differences. If you look at the pictures, one is the thicker Canelo Alvarez, where he's a little bit slower, he gets a little bit more exhausted, and that's the Canelo Alvarez that they feel like they want to move away from. Now, the new smaller Canelo Alvarez is going to have its drawbacks as well, and those drawbacks are going to include he may not have stamina issues, he may increase his speeds, but the drawback will be ultimately he will not be able to absorb the same amount of punishment that he did the first fight. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Triple G had, I believe it was a 23 knockout streak in a row, and he ended up fighting Daniel Jacobs, and Daniel Jacobs came into that fight much bigger, and he defeated Daniel Jacobs in a 12-round unanimous decision. But the thing about that was he didn't knock Daniel Jacobs out. Daniel Jacobs coming into that fight a much heavier and bigger man means he was able to absorb bigger shots and more shots from Triple G. Daniel Jacobs had already been knocked out in his career prior. That's a totally different story, but Triple G didn't knock him out, and Daniel Jacobs, we believe that his weight contributed to that. And that's an interesting perspective to see that Canelo is going to forego the weight that helped him last in that fight against Triple G, and he would basically lose the body mass for speed. So he's basically saying, if my speed's more important, my power will be there, I'll be able to get off better shots, I won't be able to be hit as much, and I'll be in better condition and shape to not get exhausted towards the end of rounds, and basically conceding that he's wanting to go 12 rounds with Triple G. I don't believe at this point that Canelo Alvarez have really any type of hope of knocking out Gennady Golovkin. I just don't see that happening. I think Canelo Alvarez is a very good fighter. He can box very well. He has very good hand movement. His foot movement isn't as great. His foot movement is pretty poor, but his hand movement, his head movement is excellent, and it may even be elite. Canelo Alvarez is a very good fighter. He's an elite fighter, and his body mass is going to play a critical role as to what happens and who wins this fight. If you look at Triple G, he pretty much comes into the fight the same way every single time. He's a normal middleweight, and he has elite power, and he can knock out a normal middleweight. Canelo Alvarez is actually small for the middleweight division as far as normal stature. What makes him a full-fledged middleweight at some degree is the fact that his body mass was so big. So the thing you have to look at this fight is Canelo Alvarez is not coming into this fight as a full-fledged middleweight. Yeah, he may make the weight, but his body mass is no longer that. So if that's the case, you have to look at it like this. Canelo Alvarez needs to be on this fucking game. Canelo Alvarez can't take rounds off. Canelo Alvarez has to make sure that he's elusive as fuck, because if he starts taking any body shots or head shots from Triple G in this fight over any one particular round too much, if he gets tired at any point like he did the last fight, the jab could hurt him. And I understand what you're saying. Well, the jab didn't hurt him last time. He has a very good chin. He didn't look wobbled or hurt at any point. You're absolutely right. But having that increased body mass helped him tremendously. He will no longer have that as an attribute going into this fight. And so since he doesn't have that as an attribute going into this fight, Canelo Alvarez is going to have to be sharp as fuck. He cannot sit on the ropes and play around with Gennady Golovkin, because if Gennady Golovkin catches him with the maybe 1 or 2 punch combination, that could be over. If Gennady Golovkin traps him with the jab, tap, 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 the fight could be over. And people tend to think that Gennady Golovkin didn't hurt or hit Canelo Alvarez at all, and he did. He hurt and hit him many times, and I'm not talking about hurt as in wobbled. I'm talking about hurt as in he felt the power of Gennady Golovkin. Now, do I believe he felt Gennady Golovkin's full power? Absolutely not, because a lot of the shots were sliding off of Canelo Alvarez due to his great defense. So we have to give credit where credit is due. Canelo Alvarez had an excellent game plan, a masterful game plan. He did not fight Mexican style, which is fighting straight up and down, going at your opponent, being ultra aggressive. And for Canelo Alvarez, that was a smart game plan, because had he went the other way, he would have got knocked the fuck out. There's no way that he's going to sit up and as a small middleweight and trade with Gennady Golovkin, a full-fledged middleweight who knocks out middleweights, full-fledged middleweights. There's no fucking way he could do that. Canelo Alvarez, in my opinion, could be putting himself in harm's way, because at some point during this fight, he will get caught with a good shot. And the big question here is, will he be able to take it? Will his body stand up to those shots at this point? Yes, we know Canelo Alvarez can outbox Triple G, but no matter how good you are, you're going to get hit with some shots during that fight. And people tend to ignore that. You're going to take some punishment. Let's be honest, Canelo Alvarez is an elite fighter. He's a very good fighter, but he's not Floyd Mayweather. He's not Pernell Whitaker. He will get touched at points. Now, since we know Canelo Alvarez will be touched at some point during this fight, the key is, can you stand up and absorb those same punches that you absorbed in the first fight without having that adequate amount of weight that you had, that adequate amount of body mass that you had? He's losing a lot of body mass, a lot of muscle mass, and he's not going to come into the fight the same fighter from a physical standpoint, from being able to absorb the punishment, from being able to put as much weight on those shots. We've already seen Triple G ate everything Canelo Alvarez gave him, and he was never visibly hurt or shaken at any point during the fight. And so without all of that weight and muscle mass, Canelo Alvarez will hit Triple G a lot more. I believe in the first few rounds he'll be a lot more explosive and on the back foot, using a lot of lateral movement to get away from Triple G. But will that be enough to not slow down? Because if Triple G simply implores a game plan of going to the body at any point during that fight, then what that in turn does is that slows Canelo Alvarez down. And we all know that stamina issues don't get corrected after one training camp. You need multiple training camps to correct a stamina issue. And not only is Canelo Alvarez coming into this fight with a prior stamina issue that needs to be corrected, he's coming into the fight coming off of a knee surgery and off of basically a year layoff. All those three things are going to make for a completely different fight from the first one. His boxing style will be the same, but will the result be? That is going to be the major question to ask. This is going to be the fight of the year. This is going to be one of the most shocking results in boxing. And I think the result of this fight is going to stun a lot of fight fans, because everyone has this fight as a very close fight. And I'm hearing every prediction saying, it could be this way, it could be that way. And I think that either fighter could win. But I think that either fighter could win in two differently dramatic ways. And I'll explain that on our prediction video. Once again, it's the IBFP. Please subscribe.